Here.
Commissioner Berry.
Here.
Commissioner Brock.
Here.
Commissioner Bynum. Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Haynes.
Here.
Commissioner May.
Here.
Commissioner Ravon. Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
And building setback and building height variances, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in sections 4, 5, and 6 of the agenda staff report. Item number 4, Z9397, night duplex conditional use permit, 3516 West 15th Street. Staff recommends approval of the requested CUP, including parking variance, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in sections 5 and 6 of the agenda staff report. Item number 6, Z9399, Assembly of Believers Baptist Church, conditional use permit, 6200 Megawell Cutoff. Staff recommends approval of the requested CUP, including land alteration variance, subject to compliance with the following conditions. Compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in sections 4, 5, and 6 of the agenda staff report. All site lighting must be low level and directed away from adjacent property. The dumpster area must be screened as per ordinance requirements with a screen, and the screen shall not exceed the height of the dumpster by at least 2 feet, not to exceed 8 feet in total height. And signage for the church facility will be as per section 36.553 of the code. These are signs permitted in office zones. Staff also recommends approval of the driveway spacing variance subject to the following conditions. The driveway location along the Megawell cutoff frontage must be moved to the west property line. The maximum driveway width shall be 24 feet, and an access easement must be dedicated at the southwest corner of the property so that the driveway can be shared with the property to the west if that property redevelops in the future. And the final item under consent approval is item 7, G25223, Morgan Keegan Drive Street name change, east of Riverfront Drive. Staff recommends approval of the proposal to change the name of Morgan Keegan Drive to River Bluff Drive. That concludes the consent agenda.
You heard the consent agenda, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda, including all staff and conditions.
And there's a motion, there's a second?
Second.
All in favor of the consent, raise your hand. And those opposed? Thank you. Pardon me. If your item was on consent, we just voted on it, you're welcome to stay and watch, but you're also welcome to leave. So if you're on the consent agenda, have a good evening. As we move to the regular agenda, we'll start with item A. If you would take us through that, please, sir.
Item A, file number Z9291A. This is the Word of Outreach Prayer Garden revised conditional use permit located at 2700 Brown Street. This application was originally filed for the October 4th meeting of last year. that has been deferred 4 times to today's meeting. You did conduct a public hearing on the item on November 15th of last year. After that November 15th Planning Commission meeting, staff met with Dr. Carolyn Smith to clarify issues related to the revised CUP application for the Prayer Garden. Dr. Smith informed staff that there would be no regular scheduled meetings, events, or services held at the Prayer Garden site. There may be an occasional event at the site similar to the 9/11 memorial event held this past September. Otherwise, the only changes to the previously approved conditional use permit will be physical changes to the site. These changes include 2 gazebo structures located near the center of the site, roof covers that are unenclosed over the existing pathway areas along the west property line, and an 8-foot by 16-foot restroom storage building along the north property line. Staff has no concerns with the proposed addition of the 2 gazebo structures and the roof covers over the existing pathway areas. However, staff does have concerns with the proposed restroom storage building. Staff feels that adding this building to the site will allow persons to stay on the site for longer periods of time than would be typically envisioned for a prayer garden type use. The permanent restroom structure could also encourage more frequent formal type events in the future. Staff continues to recommend denial of the revised CUP.
The applicant here? We have some cards both, the applicant gets time, the opponents get time, and we have.
Mr. Chair, would you set the criteria for the discussion that's been already heard at a previous meeting?
Yeah, and because we've already heard, our normal time factor is 20 minutes per side. Pardon me. Because it's already been heard, and this is just a follow-up, it's 10 minutes per side. So you can speak now, or you can hear the opposition and address them, or both.
I'll hear the opposition.
You want to wait?
Yes, sir.
Pardon me. We have 3 cards in opposition. I think one of them is Sedalia. I assume you're against.
I am.
Okay, great.
Good evening, everyone. I am against the prayer garden, of what she wanted to do with it at this particular time. We're against the open air that you spoke of earlier. When she opened it up, you could hear the music 4 blocks away. We don't want that. It's going to create a parking problem. I guess nobody never thought about that. So I think the city needs to look at the parking situation. When we first came here over a year ago about this prayer garden, it was told that that you couldn't hear the music outside of the prayer garden. Well, that's not true. So if you're going to allow her to have the prayer garden, she needs to be held to everything that's in the stipulations.
Thank you. Donald Mitchell.
Good evening. I'm against the prayer garden, and the reasons why is because how many of y'all, when we were here, she said that it was going to be open to the public. I thought it was going to be open to the public. What do y'all think? Okay, it's not open to the public. You know, her entourage, only time you'll have it open just about is when her entourage that she wants to get with them, and through an invite. Now, I thought that was a sweet deal when she said that she's going to open up for the public. That's just not so. And, most of the time when she's allowed to do something, she doesn't do it. And that's why I'm against the things that she wants to do, because she just does not live up to what she said she's going to do. So, again, I'm against it. She said that she wasn't going to have the music loud. Of course, we already said that. She's doing that. So, and then another thing is that this is not something I'm just saying. It's because when she started out, she tried to do things that she needed inspection by the city. She tried to get over on the city. You had to put her in check on that. So that's self-evident. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth Bell?
I'm Ruth Bell. I'm with the League of Women Voters. And this is a lovely concept, but it's surrounded by a residential area. And both the concept of being able to quietly think and pray or meditate in a garden or grassy environment is lovely, but it's more or less solitary or with very small groups. And at that level of participation, it is not intrusive in the surrounding neighborhood. But if you have big gatherings and frequent gatherings, with or without loud music, it's going to be intrusive to the surrounding residential area. And because of that, the League would ask that you reject the additional request she has made. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Applicant?
Okay, the loud music was only one time, and that was during the 9/11 commemoration, of which all of you were invited to come for the open house, the dedication, and the consecration. And there was 12 hours of prayer, and it was only a pastor came every hour. So there were not a whole lot of people there at one given time, because a pastor was assigned to come from 8 to 9. He came with a few people, and then another pastor came throughout the hours, 12 hours, from 8 to 8. That was the only time that music would have been heard. All of the other times, I don't know of any other time that we had loud music. The other thing is the request for the prayer garden and large gatherings is not what we want to do. It's the same ideology that Ms. Bell brought out, small gatherings. Anywhere from, the Lord says, if 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, there he is. So if 2 people come or however, but as Mr. Donald brought out, the only reason why it's not open to the public is because that was one of the concerns, that you didn't want the people from the jail, you didn't want people from Magnolia House, you didn't want people from Compassion Center wandering down there and laying out on the benches. So it was demanded that we put up a fence so that nobody could come in apart from being supervised, and that it would only be open at a certain time, and that's from 8 to 8. Well, we later discovered that we needed to make sure that someone was there to facilitate anybody coming in. Because if I just opened up the gate from 8 to 8, then all of the people that they wanted not to come could come if we didn't have supervision. So we said that we would have a sign that if you want to come to the Throne of Grace Prayer Garden, you can call our 24-hour prayer hotline number and schedule a time, and a facilitator would come, open it up for you to come in. So there will always be monitoring going on at the Throne of Grace Prayer Garden. Now, we have a Christian academy, and the children are learning about plants. They're learning how to till. They're learning things that help them develop mentally and physically. So the children from our school come and work in the Throne of Grace Prayer Garden. Well, when they have to use the restroom, where do we go? You know, we don't want to tell them to go over in the house next door that's abandoned, that people find a way to take the boards off and live up in there and go behind the bushes and do it. So we think that we need to have a restroom, a lavatory. I'm 66 years of age. I work at the Throne of Grace Prayer Garden. I do a lot of the work there. It's not because I have to. I do it because it's exercising. I enjoy it. It's time for me to be alone, time to get my hands in the dirt and just talk to the Lord. So when I need to go to the restroom, I don't need to get in my car and try to run to a house or try to run to a public place. So everything that I've been asked to do by the board based upon the complaints, we put the fence in, and if you would go through there and look at the fence, it is a top of the line fence. We spent over $20-some thousand for this fence. That means we are serious about affecting our community. We moved into this community in 1988. There was high gang violence, all kind of stuff going on. So our ministry of prayer has really impacted the community in a great way. And so the Throne of Grace Prayer Garden was born out of a dope dealer's house being brought down. The people put the house and the property in our ministry's name. We couldn't afford to pay the taxes, so we were told by the assessor that if you use it for your vision, then you don't have to pay taxes. And so that's when we put the prayer garden there, because that's part of our vision. And then the complaints, and you all escalated it. It went way beyond what I had anticipated. I just thought we was going to have some benches out there and people could come and they can pray and do whatever. But when you said we got to put up a fence, I couldn't just throw up any kind of fence because it was indicative of my disposition and what I represent. So I'm asking not to have open air services like we do in our congregation at our church. That's not what we're setting a prayer gathering. We pray every morning, Monday through Fridays at 6 a.m. in our sanctuary. So we don't need that for that type of service, but it's for the community. And I did let Mr. Goulet know it's for the community. Anybody want to come there, all you got to do is call and say, we want to come, and we'll be happy to have you. So all I'm asking for is the 2 gazebos that you see there, the additional storage, because I got stuff stored out right now outside that's getting destroyed, and the bathroom, the restroom. That's all I'm asking for. Not asking for having corporate services where it'd be a lot of loud noise, music, or loud praying. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I do have a comment. I fully appreciate the intent of what you all are doing. I think it is well thought out, and I think it's appropriate. I think the challenge we have here is that the location is in a residential area, and I think to the points that have been made here by both parties is that there are, I mean, as you described, the 9/11 service, a 12-hour service, a 9-hour service. I think we have to consider, that impact on the neighborhood. And so for that, I will be against this.
Can I address that?
You got 3 minutes left.
There are bootleg houses in the community. There are people in the community that cars are parked all along. Mr. Goulet and Mr. Thomas Donald, they did not receive the letters. They are 2 or 3 blocks away. So the people in the community are not complaining about it, the ones that receive the letters. They love it. They come and be a part of it. So the 9/11 was not a lot of noise that particular day either. So I understand what you're saying, Mr. Hamilton, but I wanted to express that the importance of us gathering is not for loud noise. We won't be doing that every day.
Ma'am,
Ma'am?
can I ask you a question?
Ma'am?
Yes, sir.
One of the gentlemen said that they could hear the music, was it 4 blocks away?
That was 9/11. That was the day we were praying for the nation. people were remembering.
But, I mean, the write-up, I believe it said that you were going to have music that could only be heard once you stepped inside the gates. It was going to be very low-level speakers. Is
That's
that not correct?
on the daily basis. But that was a special event. 9/11 commemoration, opening up the prayer garden, the dedication and the consecration of it. That was a special time. That's not what we do every day.
Is that covered by the way the ordinance, by the way it's written?
That is clearly a violation of the conditional use permit.
Thank you.
Well, I spoke with Mr.
It's okay.
Did I speak with you, Mr.?
That's in the past.
He told me it was okay to do it.
No.
I mean, didn't you tell me it was okay to do that, Mr.?
What Dr. Smith's referring to was a one-time event that occurred on September 11th. It was the commemoration of the 9/11. It was open. She had invited elected officials to come to speak, and it spent the day in prayer, and it also coincided with kind of the grand opening
Yes,
of the
sir.
prayer garden. And yes, we did allow her to do that. It is not an ongoing issue, no.
No.
Any other questions, comments? Anything else?
The only thing that I would say is you allowed us to have the Throne of Grace Prayer Garden. You told us to put up a fence. To deny us a public restroom, it's beyond what I could even imagine. That a 66-year-old woman is working there and have to go to the restroom and have issues because there's not a public restroom on site. That would be highly, I think very bad. And I would not like to have to take that to another level because I think that would indicate something that's not proper.
Thank you. Commissioners, last call. I'd entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of item B, including all staff and comments and conditions except that of denial, except the recommendation of denial.
So
Item A, excuse me, item A.
So I would remind the commission, if you're for the project, vote yes. If you're against the project, vote no. So the staff does recommend denial. Being no further discussion, if you're in favor of the project, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Item B. Item B. Phillips duplexes on Weldon Avenue. The applicant would like to address. We have several cards in opposition, so 20 minutes max.
Chairman Tour.
Hello, my name is Stanley Phillips.
Excuse me, Mr. Phillips, for a second. Would you want staff to make our presentation of the? Thank you, Stanley.
I mean, staff needs to, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. Item B, file number Z9385, Phillips Duplexes Conditional Use Permit, located on the east side of Weldon Avenue, south of West 44th Street. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit to allow for the construction of 2 duplex structures on 3 platted lots located on the east side of Weldon Avenue, approximately 150 feet south of West 44th Street. The lots are 50 feet wide and approximately 148 feet deep, and the lots are currently undeveloped. The applicant proposed to replat the 3 lots into 2 lots and construct a 2,300 square foot duplex structure on each of the 2 platted lots. The duplex structures will be 1 story in height with hip roofs and asphalt shingles. The duplex structures will be constructed on concrete slabs and be wood frame construction with vinyl siding and vinyl clad windows. Each duplex structure will be located over 55 feet back from the front or west property line and 5 feet back from the north side and south side property lines of the overall property. Each duplex will be located 4 feet back from the center dividing property line. The structure will be located 47 feet back from the rear property line. 6 paved parking spaces, 3 per unit, will be provided for each duplex structure. New paved driveways from Weldon Avenue will serve the duplex structures. Section 36255D2 of the city zoning ordinance requires a minimum side setback of 5 feet for structures constructed in R3 zoning. As noted, the structures are proposed to have 4-foot interior side setbacks. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a variance to allow this reduced setback. The applicant responded to issues raised at subdivision committee, and the staff's knowledge there are no outstanding issues associated with this application. Staff believes the proposed 2 duplex structures located on 3 platted lots on the east side of Weldon Avenue, south of West 44th Street is an appropriate use for this property. The 2 duplex structures will be only a minor increase in the original platted density for the property. The proposed duplex structures will not be out of character with the general area, as other duplex structures are located within 1 block to the east along Bowers Street. Staff believes the proposed duplexes will have no adverse impact on the subdivision or surrounded uses, and staff recommends approval of the requested CUP and side setback variance subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in sections 5 and 6 of the agenda staff report. We did receive a letter of support from the John Barrow Neighborhood Association. They did review the item and voted 4-3-1 to support the application, and we also received a petition of opposition, which you have.
My apology for that little foul up. Now, if the applicant would like to come up, you have several cards opposed. If you want to speak now or you want to retort for them or both.
I'll speak first. And once again, I come before the board, and I would have had those blew up, but that didn't come out real good in the color. But these are my existing apartment units. I've continued to invest in John Barrow. I've continued to make improvements in John Barrow. These are typical of my units, and I plan to put the same good quality bill in over on Wheaton, and those right there. As I have gotten better at the craft, I've also took in advisement. Y'all know me. I try to go and get along with everybody, and those were suggested by Ms. Doris Wright, which I'm going to implement. But the weather's been so rainy, and it's been just terrible. But y'all know me. I keep my word, and that is my vision to not only bring up all my units. I've been doing this 10 years now. I got people that meet me on the street who thank me for a place to stay. I got people who call to me, and these units will be rented before they even finish. I also have a management company now who have placed the last 13 tenants in my units, and I know more about these tenants now than the doctor do. I'm talking about the paperwork. When you go through Goss management, it's about 16 pages. Thorough background checks, credit checks, everything. Y'all know me. Anytime there's a problem, when it's brought to my attention, I'll address it. And I had an issue come up. Ms. Hyman is aware of it. I got some information. That's why I put it on deferral. I got some very disturbing information. I evicted the tenant the same day, worked the deal out, got him out within a week, got the apartment cleaned up, got it listed. And as a matter of fact, even though John Barrow is not good, for as if you look, there are vacant buildings. There are houses for sale. John Barrow is not really, right now with the market being what it is, anyone that builds a house in John Barrow gonna go broke unless you're gonna live in it. I mean, it's just that way. But because of the bills I've been doing, the market has increased $40,000-$50,000. It's bringing people property value up. Trees don't bring up value. Improvements bring value. And that's what I do, and that's what I'm here for. And hopefully the board will continue to support me, because I support improvements. I support John Barra. And, you know, a lot of people who can't afford a house still got to have a place to stay. And not many people can afford get a brand new 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths. And like I said, these are typical of all mine. I keep the oldest units looking just as good as the new units. And that's the vision that I'm growing to, not only for them to be functional, but add aesthetic, as somebody told me, aesthetic improvements too, to make them look good. Feel good and look good. So, you know, I'll try to address any concerns that anyone have.
Thank you. We have one card, additional card 4, Carolyn Heitman, John Barrow.
I'm kind of like you are. This allergies got me going crazy too. Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, staff, I am Carolyn Heitman. I'm president for the John Barrow Neighborhood Association. We did meet with Mr. Phillips at our March meeting. He gave us his proposal as to what he wanted to do. We have worked with Mr. Phillips for a long time, and I'm here to represent the association, but I have also, he can tell you, anytime I hear something, I'm on the phone to him, which I can honestly say we've only had one unit that we've had a problem with. And he did, like he told you, he did address that. The person is no longer there. I have one of his units across the street from me, and he knows that if anything goes on over there, they're going to be out the door. But he works with us, and I did outline some of the concerns in the letter that I sent to Mr. Carney, and from my understanding, those are being addressed too. So the association is, members present were in, agreement to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. On the other side, let's start with Fred Spiker. Did I say that right?
Thank you. I've never been to one of these, so I'm learning a lot.
We won't bite you.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I live on the corner of 46 and Foster. I'm trying to buy that, and I have the acre that's R3 on that. Yep, that's it right there. I don't particularly want to see this happen, and basically this is why. These are over 300 pages of all those good tenants that he's got renting his duplexes. And this is on both sides of John Barrow. These are police reports from last year and already starting this year. So I don't know about these good tenants that he keeps talking about. I have neighbors that have called the police numerous times about the duplexes and the people that are living there on Holt. Mr. Phillips has a real nice game plan. This is one of the things that he submitted for the Holt project, bushes and all this other stuff. Well, if you go take a look at it, there's no bushes. It's just cement and duplexes. And I don't know what everybody here lives in, but I live in a house. And those duplexes they don't fit the neighborhood. And Mr. Hamilton, you talked earlier about neighborhood impact. Well, what about the impact for us in our neighborhood with Mr. Phillips building these things? I think it's great that you build something for people that can't afford to buy a house or that want a big house with a second story. I think that's wonderful. But there, I don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't see it on Foster. And from what I understand, he's already planning on something else down on Foster, near a park that had so much drug traffic on it that you guys won't even, the city won't even open up the gates so you can drive in. The police just said they closed the gates. You've got to walk in. And the parking is 2. You can park 2 cars there in front of the closed, locked gates. This does nothing for the neighborhood. And this proves it. This is history of what his tenants. I don't know about Goss management. I don't know about them. I don't know about their restrictions or about their, what they look for. But this is just ridiculous. He stopped by my house one day. I was out there splitting wood. And he was talking about how he used really high quality stuff. Anybody who's built anything, you can't build high quality stuff and then brag about only spending $6 a square foot. That doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. And everybody that voted for him in this meeting that this lady runs, they live on the other side of John Barrow. And I don't understand why people put up with this. I don't understand that at all. And I can leave these for you if you want to take a look at them. But I'm hoping that you'll delay this vote and really look into what these are going to do in my neighborhood, in our neighborhood. Okay? Now, I don't know where you live. I don't know if there's any vacant lots next to you or down the street from you. But if there were, maybe Mr. Phillips can move this project over closer to where you live. And then we can have a neighborhood impact study. No volunteers. So, there's really not much else I can say besides the traffic all night long. And look, I'm not talking about all of his tenants. I'm not talking about that. But when you take the number of tenants that he has and all the addresses that are in this, it's a very high percentage of people that he doesn't seem to be scanning very well. And that in itself is a impact to the neighborhood. It's such a mixed neighborhood. It's wonderful. I can't tell you when I moved in there almost 2 years ago how many people stopped by when I was mowing the grass and just to say hi. I thought it was great. And I moved here from Los Angeles, and that's a mess. And nobody stops by to say hi to you because they don't trust anybody. Even your neighbors, they don't talk to you out there. But here it was excellent. And this is basically a good composite of what my neighbors are right here. It's excellent. What we'd like, if Mr. Phillips would like to do, is to build actually a single family home and then sell the property and get a family in there. Like the family is across the street in that first house on the south. In fact, the 2 houses on the south of that, maybe you could do your little arrow thing. Those 2 houses just north of 46, they both have families. 46. Go over to Weldon. Sorry. Go over to Weldon. So those 2, the first house and the second house, both have families. That's the only thing the neighborhood's lacking is families, kids. And there's nothing wrong with that neighborhood. There's a few abandoned homes. But we're just waiting for the city to take care of that. We're waiting for, someone to come and knock them down and have the property for sale. And then build a single family home or 2 single family homes on it. That's what we're looking for in the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Rader? Pardon? Was I even close?
It's Delisa. I live at 4424 Bower Street, and the 2 duplexes are right next to my bedroom window. And for 4.5 years now, in unit He calls it A on the left-hand side. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with Mr. Phillips, and he and I have a pretty good relationship. But the hell that we've been through for the last 4.5 years has been terrible. The drug dealing, and for whatever reason, I'm nervous, whatever reason in that in particular unit, there's always been drug dealing. And I'm talking about night and day, opening the trunks, doing the delivery from there. Police have been called. I have to be careful about calling police, and my name's probably not in here very much, because he would let them know who's unhappy with them. Well, that is me and my mother that lives directly across the street, so there's been a fear factor because of that. The cussing, I've heard the F word more in the last 4 years than I've ever heard in my life. Calling the children, cussing the children. One duplex might start out with a woman and her 2 kids. In 3 months, it's going to be 5 to 8 more family members living there. Goss management that he just mentioned, and he may still have the text. I pleaded with him to get a property management company to come in to please get us some decent neighbors, because everyone that he kept moving into this duplex already knew somebody else that lived there. So this is the first time in 4.5 years that he has utilized this property management company for Bower Street. And we're praying that we have good neighbors. The other problem, and I emailed these to Mr. Carney, and I don't know who I can show this to. Only enough parking. States on there.
Please make sure when you speak in the mic, because
I'm
it's
sorry, I got
being
it.
recorded and stuff. Thank you.
So it states on the plan that there's actually 2 parking spots per unit. There's not. It only allows 3. And because of all the additional family members, company, then that puts the parking on the street. There's not enough parking. And the landscaping, there is no landscaping. I'm raising a 7-year-old grandson with cerebral palsy, and I never felt safe enough to even have him out in the front yard to play because of the type traffic that comes over there and the type people. When I say the type people, I'm talking about the drug dealing. The trash, I've called him and took many pictures, have saved many bags of trash, have shown them to him. Well, it tells me to say something to him. What are you going to go say? Pick up your trash, your friends are coming by and throwing out their food containers and their whiskey bottles hitting the curb in front of my house. A syringe at one time. Well, that could have been somebody with diabetes. I don't think so, not in my front yard. But this has just been an ongoing struggle for the last 4.5 years. And until 3 weeks ago is the first time he utilized a property management company. But if you look at that sketch of what he brought in here, and 4.5 years ago, he tried to put 3 duplexes on that small amount of property. And I begged and pleaded to get a wood fence just to have some privacy, to keep the lights from all these cars into going in my bedroom window. Got a group of gentlemen that were playing basketball last night, and I politely asked them, I said, I'm trying to get my grandson to sleep. There's, the basketball right there by my window. And they were kind enough, and they stopped. And, but anyway, they're just right on top of us. And as Mr. Spiker was stating, right where we're at, if you just took the time and came down our street, it's like the country in the city. It's not all bad. There are some bad looking homes, but this group here, they take good care of their homes, and we care about where we live. And anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. I have 4 more cards in 8 minutes, so brevity is a virtue. Carol Perkins.
She's not here yet. I'm sorry.
Diana Wesley.
Yes, I'm Diana Todd Wesley, and I live on 4409 Foster Street. Bowers is the street behind me. Now, the complaint I have is about the noise, the cursing, like I said, is the kind of the lights, but it doesn't impact me as much because it is some bushes in the back of the house. My complaint is the noise. The aesthetics of the apartments is not all that, but the cursing, and I'm afraid that my bedroom kind of right back of those, the only thing divides it is some bushes, small area of bushes. So I'm afraid that one night, the way they cuss and carry on and go on out there, that it may be some bullets flying. And I get hit and stuff in my own home. So that is my concern, is the noise and the quality of people. I mean, if they were really outstanding citizens, as he has said, I don't think they would be out there 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning cursing and crying and boo-hooing and cars.
Excuse me. Yeah, if I may interject, I just want to remind everybody that is speaking, let's try to refrain from using phrases as, those people or quality of people on there.
I don't know who they are.
We can talk about health, safety, those types of issues, but we need to refrain from those.
From people, it got to be people back there that's making those kind of noises.
Well, people can make those kind of noises.
Cursing and.
But please refrain from saying those types of people or the quality of people. You can talk about what they're doing for life and safety issues, stuff like that.
Okay, life and safety.
Thank you.
Whatever is going on, I mean, those type of activities are going on pretty constantly. And I just don't feel safe. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Beulah Scott.
Those are copies of the duplexes that he has in our area. And you can see, he talks about how they're landscaped and everything, and you can look at those and tell by that it's not landscaped. Weldon is a narrow street. There is not room for 2 cars to go down that street. There is no street parking, and deep ditches. It's just not feasible to have duplexes in that area. Those are directly behind our property. There's not going to be room for anything there. It's just a bad situation. We'd love to have somebody build a nice house there. I don't mean an expensive house, just a nice, comfortable house for a single family, and it's causing our property to hit bottom. It's not worth anything, and we've worked out there. We've gotten sewer, we've got water out there, we've getting streets, and we've worked on all these committees, getting all these things to make our neighborhood better, and it's just not an area for duplexes. Thank you.
Thank you. James Murray.
Thank you. First question I have is on the proposed density level of the area. What is that? Excuse me? The improved density level. You mentioned it to begin with, that you had improved, that it was well within means.
This particular property, you have 3 platted lots. So, you could build 3 single-family homes, one on each of the lots. And in our write-up, we said it's a minor increase in density. So Mr. Phillips is proposing 4 single-family units where 3 could be approved by right, because you have 3 platted lots.
Okay. I'll make it brief. My wife and I, with our children, moved into the area about 16 years ago. We feel like we've, built a home there, but we're latecomers. There's, a lot of my neighbors have been there 30, 40 years, 60, some of them. Like Boots was saying, that, they were instrumental in getting roads and sewage in the area. And I have nothing against a man trying to make some money. The idea that he's doing it for the people is, that's it. No one can buy that. Come on, you're in business to make a profit, or you're not in business. It may help people along the way, but he's in business to make a profit. Nothing wrong with that. By golly, let him make it on the, with single-family homes. It's a single-family neighborhood. Yeah. He's the one that's brought duplexes into the neighborhood, and it's changed it. Like I said, 16 years, and it's been only the last 4.5 years since those duplexes went in the street right up from me that suddenly we have all these problems. I'm finding trash, like they were saying beer bottles and stuff in the yard. What is going on? And I'm looking out, and there's all these cars down at the duplexes. Police are down at the duplexes every time you turn around. What's going on? It's not necessary. We don't need it in the neighborhood. So why would you all go to the extent of allowing it when obviously a good share of the neighborhood that live directly around this area don't want it? Why would you afford a man to do that to make the rest of the neighborhood all upset and mad? It doesn't even make any sense. Tell him to go buy property somewhere else or put single-family homes on there. Real simple. Real simple. Unless, like Spike mentioned earlier, unless you want him to have a duplex right next to you, do you? No, you don't. That's it. I've said my piece. If you'll allow it, trust me, it's going to the next level. It's not happening.
Sir, either speak at the podium or not. I mean, when you speak out there, we can't hear it.
If we can prevent it legally, thank you.
Thank you.
You care to address some of those, Mr. Phillips?
First thing is, I don't know what's in that. And I feel like, if you really had a genuine concern, you'd have brought that to me. Some of these people have gotten up here. I've stopped by their house, speak to them. Every time I see them, they never said a word. I feel like, I don't believe in throwing stone for stone. But this I can tell you. Me and Mr. Heitman, we gotten the police report. I don't know what that is or who it is or what units it is. And it looks very impressive, but that don't necessarily mean it has any depth and weight. This is what I do know. We talk, I heard people talk about folks like we got a subhuman people here. We got human beings who rent rental property. Maybe one day they'll buy, maybe they won't. But we talking about all us humans. And because you can't figure out a way to bring affordable housing, doesn't mean it cannot be done affordably. Don't nobody really get into doing what I'm doing unless they do care about people. It ain't worth the stress. It really is not. But once again, like I say, because I know there are people that are happy to have a good place to stay, that they can afford, nice, clean, affordable. And the thing about it is I met every requirement of the board. First of all, they know it only takes 1.5 units per parking spaces. I met the standard. 3 parking spaces for 4 apartments, 6 altogether. Now the tenants don't always park like they should. You know what I'm saying? Some people can't drive. They ain't gonna park like they supposed to park. And with weeding, and as I've improved, you notice I got plenty. As I've learned over time, I got twice as much as required. Staff know that. I got twice as much parking on this. It won't be a need to park on the street. And then because you feel a certain way, that don't make it true. These people are qualified that knows what the street can handle. They know what the drainage, the water, they have our best interest. And I've met the requirements. Staff don't just approve something because they don't know what they're doing. This will work, and it will work great. We're going to have people who are people. And Ms. Hyman can attest. Every time someone who comes to the neighborhood association or bring a legitimate concern, now you come up here and you talk about stuff, and I can't believe it. I admit my feelings hurt a little bit. I stop by some of these folks' house every time I see them. Have good conversation, never said a word. And if there's a problem, I can't fix it unless I know there's a problem. In fairness, as a matter of fact, one last thing. While I will tell you this here. There are 2 houses on Wheaton right now, 2 single-family houses, Weldon, for sale right now across the street from this property. People are not doing well with single-family housing. I know it's the old American dream, but they still families. You can get good. Some of y'all didn't always have a house.
Mr. Phillips,
talking
if you please address the commission.
Well, it kind of got emotional with folks who you see every day, and then you hear this, it's like, what? The houses, brand new, are for sale. Across the street from this property that I propose to build, which tells you, if you single family houses, I'm not knocking nobody for whatever they want to put on it, but for me, it works better, and that's why I come before the board to do the duplexes and put good affordable. There's plenty of parking, twice as much. There'll be no parking on the street, and there'll be no parking on the street. I met all the requirements. And the street is no different from the rest of the streets in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. No, we timed up. Commissioners.
Yes, I've got just a couple of questions. I guess the first one is for staff. What we're hearing here is whether or not this potential development has met all the requirements that the city would require to build this particular structure. Is that correct?
That is correct. You're looking at for a conditional use permit, and it does have verbiage in there and I did try to explain that to one of the opposition earlier, that you can talk about safety and health and other issues. So the commission can look at other things that tied to a conditional use permit other than just whether it is a duplex. It's other factors that you can look at.
Okay. And the second question would go to the developer. I think I heard you say this, but could you clarify that in some of the current units that you have, there are families that live there?
And my other?
Yes.
All of them are families.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Thomas, I have a question. How long have you been using the management company?
I've been using, Elise, this is my 13th unit.
For
2 years ago. I'm over 2 years.
Okay.
What it is this is what it is when you got brand new and you're a good landlord, people don't move out. That's why I haven't had that much turnover. I have very little turnover. And being a watchdog in the neighborhood, we be on it. Now, you can find a lot of reasons to blame a lot of things, but I give you my word, and you even heard the lady next door tell you I'm always accessible. She texts me and called me 2 o'clock in the morning. I hit her back. I have addressed every issue that has come up. And I will continue to be a good landlord, a good developer, and a good neighbor. That's my promise. I've kept my word. I'm always accessible.
Commissioners? I guess technically, but Commissioner May, you have 2 minutes left, so next.
Stanley, you got a problem.
Wait, Commissioner May.
Go ahead.
Commissioner May.
Stanley, you got a problem, and you ought to take advantage of your putting something I think is good in the neighborhood, but these people are trying to tell you something. You need to get with them at that meeting that they have and say, what can I do? What would you suggest? And I think you have I used to be a landlord, and some people I just say, clean up your deal if you got to go somewhere else to live. And I wouldn't want to live next to what they say. And why don't you get with them before you leave here today and say, let's come together and work this problem out, because I think what you're doing is putting new life into an old neighborhood.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes left, and that lady and this lady had their hands up, so.
I was just gonna say, I live at 43.
Use the
Excuse
mic,
me.
please. You're on TV, you see.
And you need to state your name, please.
I'm Jennifer Wilkerson, and I live at 4312 Weldon, and I just want to say it's a very narrow street. People do park on the side of the road across the street from where he's wanting to build the duplexes, and you can't get 2 cars through there at one time. There are no curbs and gutters. It's large, deep ditches. I have to pull over on the side of the road to let someone by, and in that area, it's very narrow. So I do not think that it would be good to add more vehicles, especially that many vehicles in one area. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, when I said that I mentioned the Goss Property Management Company, Mr. Phillips and Stanley, because he and I talk and we do communicate. But he did tell me that the Bower Street, this is the first time that he's used a realty company. It's the first time a sign's ever been posted. Now, with Ms. Hotman over, as they say, on the other side of Barrow, which she has nothing to do with our neighborhood, he might have utilized it over there. The meetings that they have that they're referring to on that Monday, not everybody can get to. So that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Last chance. Questions, comments?
I'd like to make a comment. I got here a little late.
Use the mic. Got a minute.
As far as revitalizing the neighborhood, that will not happen.
State your name, please.
My name is Shelley Smith, and I'm at 4320 Weldon, right across the street, catty corner. As far as revitalizing the neighborhood, that is completely false. Unless you have been in this area, we've been over there almost 20 years. They built brand new houses, $120,000, $140,000 houses. Why do you think they're for sale? They don't want to live across the street from a duplex. This duplex, when you get too much rental property in an area, it deteriorates the neighborhood. This is all family homed except for the duplexes that he's put in there and a few of the single family homes. The only problem in this area is the rental properties. You continue to allow rental properties in this area, these people are going to all move out, just like the 2 houses across the street. They heard word that they're going to put these high volume duplexes over there. People are going to bail. The people that are keeping the neighborhood safe, John Barrow is different districts. We're on another corner of John Barrow. We don't have all the crime and problems. I'm the one that got the police reports. The police officer told me that it was so much volume, she was shocked. She had to give it to me on a disc, and I had to get it printed out.
Thank you.
But that's not going to help our neighborhood.
Gotcha. All right, time for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve item 5, including all staff comments and conditions.
Second.
Oh, B, I'm sorry.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? I have one, Mr. Phillips. I don't think I've ever voted against some of your projects, but I'm going to tonight. I think Commissioner May hit the nail on the head, and that's that there's a disconnect between what you're wanting to do and what you want to do and have an outcome, and what the neighborhood is actually seeing the outcome. I would suggest you get with them and try to work something out. The pictures they showed us don't show much landscaping, for instance, and that's just my comment. And so with that, any other comments? No, if you're in favor of the project, raise your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Project failed. Thank you. Item 5, if you'll start us, staff.
Item 5, file number Z9398. This is a Dogwood Partners accessory dwelling conditional use permit located at 3301 West Capitol Avenue. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit to allow for an accessory dwelling or a second dwelling on the R3 zone property at 3301 West Capitol Avenue. The property is located at the southwest corner of West Capitol Avenue and Brown Street. The property is currently undeveloped and grass covered with a few small to medium-sized trees. The applicant proposes to construct 2 single-family residences on the property, one which will serve as an accessory dwelling. The property owner proposes to rent both residences. The northernmost residence will be 1,250 square feet in area and will be located 19 feet back from the front or north property line, over 16 feet back from the west side property line, 5.5 feet from the east street side property line, and over 70 feet from the rear or south property line. The southern dwelling, which will be the accessory dwelling, will be 885 square feet in area, located over 60 feet from the front property line, 5 feet from the west side property line, 10 feet from the east street side property line, and that's the porch section only of that residence, and 18 feet from the rear property line. One single-family driveway from Brown Street is provided for each of the dwellings. Each dwelling will be frame construction with a pitched roof. The north dwelling will be 2 stories in height, with the southern accessory dwelling being 1 story. The applicant is requesting 3 variances with the proposed development. The first variance is from section 36255D1 of the city's zoning ordinance. This section requires a minimum front setback of 25 feet for the principal structure in R3 zoning. A portion of the northernmost structure will be located approximately 19 feet back from the front or north property line, and this is the porch portion only of the structure. The main body of the structure will be located behind the 25-foot required setback. The proposed residence will have a front setback similar to other residences to the west along West Capitol Avenue. The second variance is from section 36156A2, which requires minimum street side setback of 15 feet for accessory structures. A small portion of the porch section of the south dwelling or the accessory dwelling will be located approximately 10 feet back from the east street side property line. And the minimum principal structure setback from this property line is only 5 feet. The last variance is from section 36252A3. This section requires that when there is an accessory structure on a property, one of the 2 dwellings must be occupied by the landowner. And as previously noted, the applicant proposes to rent both dwellings. There were no issues raised by the subdivision committee which the applicant needed to respond to. And to staff's knowledge, there are no outstanding issues associated with this application. Staff believes the proposal to construct 2 single-family homes on this property, one of which will serve as an accessory dwelling, is an appropriate use for the property. There are a number of lots within this general area which are zoned R2 and allow 2 rental single-family units on 1 lot. The proposal to have 2 separate single-family rental structures on this property will not be out of character with the neighborhood. Additionally, the design and building setbacks of the proposed structures will be compatible with the general area. Staff believes the proposed principal and accessory structures will have no adverse impact on the surrounding uses or the general area. And staff recommends approval of the requested CUP, including building setback and accessory dwelling variances, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in sections 5 and 6 of the agenda staff report.
Before we start, are you wanting to rescue these police reports?
Okay. I don't know what I'm going to do with them.
Well, I just saw you sitting there and thought you might be interested again. Well, feel free, come on. Would the applicant care to address, or we
Yes,
have
sir.
one card in opposition if you want to wait and address that, or both?
I'm ready. I'll go ahead and
Okay.
go over this. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Aaron Jones. I'm here on behalf of Dogwood Partners. I've got a PowerPoint, if you could pull that up for me. So if you'll go ahead and go to the second page. So again, this just kind of highlights what they've already talked about. What we're asking for is a conditional use permit to allow for the construction of the primary residence and accessory dwelling. The setback is to allow for block face, and I've got some pictures, but that just allows us to line the houses up with the existing houses on Capitol. Otherwise, it would look like an infill house instead of like a house that was designed to be there. Separate utility meters on the houses. We are asking for a variance to allow us to rent both houses, although that's not really necessarily our intention. We actually have the houses sold to a family. She may be here in a few minutes if she can get off work. That will live in the first house in the primary dwelling and then rent the second house out, and maybe for a family member at some point. But that's what she wanted, so that's the way we're building it. If you would go and go to the next slide. This is an example. We've hired Scott Smith Associates Architects to design both houses. He's designed this as the typical elevation for the primary dwelling, about 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story. It'll be a hardy board, concrete siding type painted structure, brick foundation. The next one, this is the accessory dwelling. Again, Scott designed it as well to be a craftsman style house that will fit within the neighborhood. This one will be about 885 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Again, it'll have the same exterior style of construction, concrete board type. The next one, this one, the yellow is the proposed site. And I've highlighted and pulled the sizes of the houses around it. Mr. Walker, who is here, who will address this commission here, or this board in a few minutes. I have met with Mr. Walker, as is Mr. Priest, met with Mr. Walker. And one of his concerns was the houses were too small. And so if you look, the houses all around me range from 922, 910 square feet up to 1,365 square feet. But most of the houses are 966, 1,080, 1,176. I mean, you can see 1,144. The houses are very much in keeping. In fact, if we went and built a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot house, it would really be out of character with the neighborhood. It really, you'd end up like what they have up in the Heights, where you have these great old houses and they tear them down and put these 4,000 square foot monsters up. So I really didn't think that was appropriate, but I wanted you to see that. Also, I have presented this to the Capitol View Stiff Station Neighborhood Association 2 separate times. At the first meeting, Mr. Walker was not present. There was no one opposed to it. At the second meeting, Mr. Walker was present, and he asked for a motion that they disapprove it. There was some discussion about it, and it was a packed meeting, probably 40, 50 people there. Mr. Walker was the only person who voted against supporting this. So the Capitol View Stiff Station did not vote to support it, but they did not vote to oppose it. Okay, if you'll go to that next slide. Again, this just shows the lot looking from Capitol. I'm standing on Capitol at the front of the lot. If you'll go on, just go to the next one. This is staying at the lot looking to the east. That is the backside of Lamar Porter and the Boys Club. This is directly across the street from me, looking straight north. There's this apartment complex. This is from the other end of my lot looking towards Capitol. You can see Capitol and Brown. And then this is standing looking to the northeast, towards down Capitol. Okay, this is just another view of the lot showing the houses that are around us. This is the lot. This is the house on Brown Street that's next to us. This is looking down Capitol to the east. This is standing, I'm standing 4 houses down from our house, our lot, looking to the east. And as you can see, these houses are all in line, and what we're proposing would align our front porches up with these front porches. And I think the next one is standing at the same spot, yeah, looking the other direction towards UAMS, looking to the west. So as you can see, all the houses are pretty much lined up, which is why we're asking to line up with the city's block face requirement, technical, or something about so many houses within the block, or with, anyway, that's that. I know Mr. Priest didn't fill out a card. She's walking in right now. But anyway, that's all I've got, unless you've got a question.
Robert Walker, come on up.
Yes, sir. I'm Robert Walker. I'm a past president of the Capital Vista Station Neighborhood Association. I've been a long-time resident. I have lived in my house this century. That's a picture of the Billy Mitchell Boys and Girls Club, and we're really proud our neighborhood built that bus stop, had the kids decorate it, had them plant the flowers. Now, my neighborhood is a little bit stressed. The staff planted shrubbery in front of that Boys and Girls Club just before Mother's Day last year, and that being a bus stop, people stole all the shrubbery. They did. But the bulbs they couldn't see and they couldn't steal. So when we planted them, they're coming up now. The daffodils are, and we got some lilies coming. That's the bus coming down to take the kids to the Boys and Girls Club. Boys and Girls Club has a basketball court in there. They have dances in there. When there's dances and basketball games, the whole street has a lot of cars parking on there and on Brown Street. It's pretty good. That's looking across the Little League baseball field at the lot that he wants to develop with two houses. Now, this is almost an argument, as you heard, about duplexes versus people living in houses, except Mr. Phillips had 3 paved parking spaces for each housing unit, 6 for each of his duplexes. This proposal has 1 car parking for each of these houses. He's saying it's in keeping with what the city does, but the city's done different things. When my neighborhood was plotted, many houses didn't have cars. You went down to the trolley and you caught the trolley, you go to work. Now you have 2 adults in the house, you have 2 cars. Maybe you got an RV there too, and he's only planning for 1 car off-street parking, whereas that's the Little League field. I've taken some more pictures. Baseball practice has started, and they come by and park on Brown Street. That's a well-established use of the area, and basically he's going to be using Brown Street for parking for the people who live in these houses, and that's not appropriate. Now, this is, let's see, what is this? Let's skip it. Oh, no, that's the house. This house was built before the Civil War. Now, this one here is the house where the bullet hit the window. There was a child living in this house, a family. They've moved since then for some reason. But the apartment house across the street from me that he's shown pictures of, and I've got pictures of, somebody was living upstairs. Can I talk? I'm not talking about rental people being bad people or anything. They just lived upstairs, and he had a little business, and there was a shooting. And the bullet from one of them's gun went across the street and hit the window of this house. No, not this house. This is one that was built before the Civil War. This one here hit the window where the child lived. But I used to live on Capitol for decades before I moved into my house, and I was a nice tenant. So do we have more pictures now? We got, that's the apartment house. Upstairs, one of those apartments was where the shooting occurred. This is the side, the sex offender lived in one of these apartments. Now, for a while there, people would move in and they'd hang bed sheets up in front of these windows. And that was a bad sign because you'd figure they'd be moving in a few months because they didn't have enough money for. Anyway, the sex offender lived over there, and at that time.
Chairman Latour, excuse me. Sir, we want to provide you maximum due process, and we understand that public safety, health, and welfare are issues, but we would kind of like to steer the comments towards this particular development, and if we could.
Towards that. Okay, that's my house. I got to get up there and get that branch off. Ever since Energy cut up my oak tree, it's aged and someday it's going to fall, but I got to get up there and get that off the roof. I've been mowing the grass. Let's see. This is the house on Brown Street, brand new, built by a man who didn't mind building one house on a lot. He's done a lot of work in the back because there's a hill behind it and drainage is a problem. Got a beautiful 2-car garage. 2 cars. He's expecting people with 2 cars to live in his house that he has for sale now. This is a house on a divided lot on 4th Street between Martin and Brown. You notice there's 3 Hondas there, another car parked there, and that's a small lot, a small house, and the tree is leaning against it. Now, I've gone over there and talked to him. I'm going to help him get that tree off of his house. But you put small lots out there and you divide lots up, it's unstable. Those are the 3 Hondas in front of it. That's on 4th Street, same block. Do we have more pictures? That's still the house with the tree. I took a picture of the, well, now you've gone back to the beginning. So is that all of them? That's all. I shot a video, 4-second video, with this Kindle. When I turn it on, Alexa complains she can't connect, so I haven't turned it on yet. But I would like to try to play that 4-second video so you hear the freeway noise. If I can find it, where'd it go?
Chairman, could we get the comments on track for?
Do what?
Could we get the comments on track, please?
Yeah, Mr. Walker, we know there's noise from the freeway, so address the actual project.
This is a picture of the corner with baseball practice. In practice, people come and park on Brown Street. They're parking on the lot right now. They appreciate it. The best use of the lot would be to give it to the Boys and Girls Club for parking at the Little League field, but we can't expect them to do that. But I can expect them to live up to the zoning that says 1 house per lot. Really big house if you want, but 1 house. This is a well-established usage of Brown Street, and he wants to put in 2 little bitty driveways for 2 cars for 2 dwelling units. That's not appropriate. He needs more parking. Mr. Phillips had 6 parking spaces for each of his duplex units. Dogwood is trying to do the least they can and use Brown Street for parking for the people who live in these 2 dwelling units on this 1 lot. Please don't let them put up 2 dwelling units. He's saying 2 rental units. I had a picture, the house next to the lot. I know the man who owns it. He lives in Maumelle someplace. He rides his bicycle. We ride together. He rents to people who want to rent there. He had young men there renting. I went over there and told him it was against the law in Little Rock to shoot firecrackers because, of course, in the 4th of July, grass gets dry.
Mr. Walker,
Yes,
where
sir.
are you going with this? I mean, we're talking about the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Talk about the project. What?
The project. Well,
I mean, we understand the parking. We understand that it's a problem, and you raised a point.
It's more of a problem with
needs to
rental
address the
people,
point.
and they want to have a rental structure there. Now they can build a big house and rent it. A family can buy it. There's a baseball field right next to it. The Boys and Girls Club is there. The established usage for that corner is a lot of parking for the baseball field and for the basketball court and for the dancing. I don't have problems with that. I have a problem with trying to put 2 habitable structures on 1 lot. My neighborhood is zoned for 1. I had a picture of Brown Street. Brown Street from Capitol to Markham is narrow. Somebody saved money by not building a wide street. You can only park on 1 side of the street, except the people in the apartment house, they just park anywhere they want to. You can only park on one side of Brown Street, and it's one way because somebody saved the money a long time ago. What y'all decide today is going to last a century, and I would prefer it to stay like what I moved into, one house per lot. That's what it's zoned for. That's what I ask you to keep it at. It will be more stable. My little video that I had shows the sound from 6:30. People don't want to live near noise, and there's noise from 6:30. My neighborhood is already stressed. I want you to keep it one house per lot. They can make a big backyard for the dog to run around in, but I ask you not to allow the variance for two habitable structures. You're never going to be able to divide them because they've already refused to let them divide the lot. I showed you what happens when you divide lots. It will not do my neighborhood good, won't do my corner good. The apartment house across the street doesn't do my corner good. But things have gotten better, and he can find somebody to buy a big house if he builds it. He can build a big garage or a workshop, but not another housing unit with just two parking places, one for each house. Are there any questions, sir?
Mr. Walker. Thank you. Yes, Bonnie?
For the record, with respect to Mr. Walker's concern about parking, Mr. Jones is complying with ordinance standards by providing one parking space per single-family home.
Thank you. Would you care to address any of that? Or not?
I'll answer any questions the commission has, but no, I have nothing to address.
Commissioners, any questions, comments? Mr. Berry?
Now, before I take a vote, no question for you, though. I mean, infill development is the hardest. It becomes a lightning rod for everything thrown in the sink. The John Barrow Neighborhood Association was a good example, probably, of some material things regarding Mr. Phillips' development, even though I voted for it. But this is one I don't see anything material at all that would speak against it. I live 4 or 5 blocks north of there. After Mr. May was playing at Lamar Porter, I played at Lamar Porter, and that's all. I still ride my bike by there. It's a good use of a vacant piece of property, and it's only incrementally denser, which, this commission is beginning to address in the city is the need for middle housing. Middle housing being, it's not just single story, single family anymore. It's a little bit different variations like this to meet different needs of households. So anyhow, that's all.
Mr. Chair. Oh, no. I'm just.
Any other comments? Any other comments? I would only make the observation, the difference to me between that neighborhood and this neighborhood as far as the proposal is that's a duplex and these are two single-family things. I think there is a difference in that. With that said, if there are no further comments, we'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of item 5, including all staff comments and conditions.
You have a motion, there a second? Second. And there's a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Passed. That, with exception of one short announcement, that concludes our meeting. There will tentatively be an informal meeting April 11th, and we'll be sending you details as to where it is, but there will be some good food available to you if it all works out afterwards. So we hope that works out. But put on your calendars, at least tentatively, an informal meeting on April 11th. We are adjourned.